Hello students, I hope you all are fine and healthy. We are reading chapter number 16, Water a Precious Resource. Today we will learn about the groundwater as an important source of water. A large number of people draw water from the wells, hand pumps and bore wells. So from where do these bore wells, hand pumps and wells they get the water? They get it from the water that is present below the surface of the earth, that is known as the groundwater. If we will dig a hole or well in the ground, then we will find that after some depth, the soil that comes out from the hole, it is moist or wet. The moisture in the dug up soil indicates the presence of water under the ground. If we will dig deeper and deeper, then we will reach a depth where all the spaces between the particles of soils and the gaps between the rocks and pores in the permeable rocks, they are filled with the water. Now this is the depth where the underground water starts. A rock which allows the water to pass through it. It is known as a permeable rock. The permeable rocks are porous rocks, means they are having tiny pores in them. The upper level of water under the ground, which occupies all the space in the soil and the rocks, that is known as water table, or we can say that the upper level of the water under the ground, it is known as the water table, or we can say that the upper level of the groundwater below the surface of the earth, it is known as the water table. Water table represents a depth in the ground below which the soil and the rocks, they are completely filled with the water. The water table varies from place to place and it may change at a given place over a period of time. For example, at some places the water table may be at a depth of less than a meter, whereas at other places the water table may be several meters below the ground. How deep we have to dig below the ground to obtain the water, it depends upon the water table of that place. If the water table at a place, it is high, then we have to dig less to obtain the groundwater. And if the water table at a place is low, then we have to dig deep into the ground to obtain the groundwater. The water table rises and falls depending upon the amount of rainwater which seeps into the ground, and it also depends on how much groundwater is taken out or pumped out. If there is more rainfall and more water seeps into the ground, then the water table rises, and on the other hand, if the excess water is pumped out for the industries, irrigation and the personal use, then the water table at that place falls. Now the water that is found below the water table, it is known as groundwater. Groundwater means the water that is found below the water table. This water is stored in the soil and pores of the permeable rock under the ground. The groundwater is an important source of water for us. The main source of groundwater is rain. The rainwater and the water from the other sources such as rivers, ponds and lakes, it seeps through the ground and it fills the empty space that is between the soil and the rocks. This water seeps deeper and deeper through the soil and permeable rocks until it reaches an impermeable rock. Impermeable rock is a rock which does not allow the water to pass through it. impermeable rock is a non-porous rock and it is a hard rock. Since the impermeable rock does not allow the water to pass through it, so the water starts collecting above the impermeable rock and fills the soil and the permeable rocks with water up to the level that is known as water table. The underground layer of soil and permeable rocks in which the water collects under the ground, that is known as aquifer. In aquifer, water is stored between the particles of soil in the cracks and pores of the permeable rocks. We can assume aquifer as a giant underground sponge which holds the groundwater in it. The top of the aquifer, it is known as water table. We can pump out the water from the aquifer with the help of wells, tube wells, or with the help of hand pumps. The rainwater which seeps into the ground, it reaches the aquifer and gets stored there. When we draw or take out the groundwater for our use, then the amount of the groundwater decreases. But when it rains, the rainwater seeps into the ground and the groundwater gets refilled or recharged. If we will draw more and more groundwater, then that can be recharged by the rain, then the water table will fall, due to which many wells, tube wells can become dry. Now we will learn about the depletion of water table. Depletion of water table means the lowering of water table, or we can say the decrease in the level of the water table. And replenish means to replace something that has been used or to fill up something again. The water which we take out from under the ground for various purposes, it gets replenished naturally by the rainwater. The water table at a place may get depleted or it may fall down if the water that is taken out, it is not replenished naturally. Some factors which affect the water table and make it go down there are increasing population, industrial and agricultural activities, scanty rainfall, deforestation, and decrease in the area for seepage of rainwater. The increasing population needs more and more water for its day-to-day needs, and due to increasing population, more houses, offices, schools, etc. are required to be constructed, and a large amount of water is used in the construction work. Now when more and more buildings, houses, offices are constructed, then the open spaces like the grounds and the parks having unpaved ground for the seepage of the rainwater gets reduced, due to which the seepage of the rainwater into the ground decreases. Because of increasing population, we are using more and more groundwater and we are allowing less rainwater to seep into the ground. This leads to the depletion of water table. Industries produces a large number of products which we need in our daily life, and the production of these things needs water. As the population is increasing, so the demand of the industrial products is also increasing, due to which the number of the industries is also increasing continuously. Water used by most of the industries, it is pumped out from the ground. Now with the increase in the number of the industries, the amount of the water that is pumped out from the ground, it is also increasing, which leads to the depletion of water table. The growing of various crops requires a lot of water for irrigation. In India, most of the farmers depends on the rain for irrigating their crops, and when there is less rainfall At that time, the farmers have to use the groundwater for irrigating their crops. For increasing population, more and more food has to be grown, due to which the use of the groundwater in the agriculture field is increasing day by day, which results in the depletion of water table. Sometimes there is less rainfall or scanty rainfall in the rainy season, due to which less rainwater seeps into the ground. In such situation, the more groundwater is pumped out by the people, then that can be replenished, which leads to the depletion of water table. The forest help in bringing the rain by putting a lot of water vapors into the air through the process of transpiration. So lesser number of plants and trees in the forest, they will bring less rainfall. The trees and the plants, they also helps in the seepage of rainwater into the ground. Now the less number of trees and plants, they will allow less rainwater to seep into the ground. So deforestation leads to less rainfall and less seepage of rainwater, due to which the water table gets depleted. So these are the various reasons behind the depletion, or we can say the lowering of the water table.
Now we will discuss some questions related to our today's topic. So our first question is, what is the water bearing layer of earth known as? So the water bearing layer of the earth is known as aquifer. In the aquifer, water is stored between the particles of soil and in the cracks and the pores that are in the permeable rocks. Now our next question is, what is the main source of groundwater? So the main source of groundwater is the rainwater that seeps into the ground and finally reaches the aquifer. So the rainwater that seeps into the ground and gets stored in the aquifer, it is the main source of groundwater. Now our next question is, which natural process continuously converts some of the saline seawater into fresh water? So the natural process is water cycle. Water cycle is continuously converting the saline seawater into the fresh water from millions of years. Now our next question is, what is the minimum amount of water per person per day recommended by the United Nations for drinking, washing, cooking and maintaining proper hygiene? So a minimum of 50 liters of water. It is recommended by the United Nations for drinking, washing, cooking and maintaining the proper hygiene. But most of the persons don't get this minimum amount of water. There are a large number of people that are not getting the minimum water recommended by United Nations. Now our next question is, what is meant by water table? Name one factor which raises water table. So water table means the topmost layer of the water that is present under the soil. It is known as water table, or we can say the upper level of groundwater that is present below the surface of earth. Now this water table, it represents a depth in the ground below which the soils and the rocks, they are completely filled with the water. Okay. Now our next question is, what are the various factors which affect water table or deplete the water table? So the various factors that affect the water table, they are increasing population, increasing industrial and agricultural activities, scanty rainfall, deforestation, and decrease in the area for seepage of rainwater. Now our next question is, what is an aquifer? What is the upper level of an aquifer known as? Now aquifer means the underground layer of soil and the permeable rocks in which the water gets collected under the ground. It is known as aquifer. So in this aquifer, water is stored between the particles of soil and the cracks and pores of permeable rocks. Now the upper level of the aquifer, it is known as the water table. Now our next question is, what is groundwater? Name the main source of groundwater. So the water that is found below the water table, it is known as groundwater. Now the main source of groundwater is the rain. So the rainwater is the main source of groundwater, or the water that seeps from the other water sources such as rivers, lakes and ponds into the ground. They are also the sources of groundwater. Now our next question is, explain how groundwater is recharged. Now the main source of groundwater recharge is rain, and the water from the other sources such as rivers, ponds, lakes. It also seeps through the ground and it fills the empty space that is between the soil and the rocks. Now this water keeps on seeping deeper and deeper until it reaches a layer of the soil or the rocks that are impermeable. So the water starts collecting over it and recharge the groundwater. Now our next question is, when is World Water Day celebrated and why is it celebrated? So the World Water Day is celebrated every year on 22nd March, and the World Water Day is celebrated to attract the attention of everyone towards the importance of conserving water. Now our next question is, describe how the increasing population is responsible for the depletion of water table. So the increasing population needs more and more water for day-to-day activities. Now due to the increasing population, we are building more houses, more shops, offices, schools, etc. Now a large number of groundwater is used for the construction work. Now when more and more houses are being built, more offices are constructed, so the open spaces like the parks and the playgrounds which are having unpaved ground, they are reducing. So due to the reduce in the unpaved ground, the seepage of rainwater into the ground, it is also decreasing. So due to the decrease in the unpaved ground, the seepage of rainwater into the ground is decreasing. Now because of increasing population, we are consuming more and more water, and on the other hand, the less rainwater is seeping into the ground. So in this way, it is leading to the depletion of water table. Now our next question is, describe how the increasing industrial activities are causing the depletion of water table. Now we know that the industries produces a large number of products which we use in our everyday life, and for producing these all products the industries needs water. Now as the population is increasing, so the demand of various products that are produced by the industries, it is also increasing. So due to which the number of industries are increasing continuously. Now the water that is used by most of the industries, it is pumped out from the ground. So with the increase in the number of industries, the water drawn from the ground, it is also increasing, which results in the depletion of water table. Now our next question is, how are the agricultural activities responsible for the depletion of water table? Now we know that for growing the crops we require a lot of water because the crops are required to be irrigated. Now in the India, most of the farmers depends on the rain for the irrigation. Now if there is less rain or sometimes there is no rain in particular area, so the farmers have to use the groundwater for the irrigation purpose. Now for the increasing population, we have to grow more and more food. So the use of groundwater in the agriculture, it is increasing day by day, which is resulting in the depletion of water table. Now the next question is, the water bearing layer of earth called P is made up of two components Q and R, in which the water collects under the ground. Now the top layer level of layer P is called S. Now when too many tube wells are used in an area, the level of S in that area goes down. What are P, Q, R and S? We know that the water bearing layer of the earth, it is called aquifer. So the P here is aquifer. Now aquifer is made up of two components, that are the soil particles and the porous rocks in which the water gets collected. So Q is soil particles and R is porous rocks. Now the next is the top level of layer P is called. So we know that the top level of aquifer, it is known as the water table. Now the next part is, when too many tube wells are connected in an area, the level of S in that area goes down. So S is basically the water table. P is aquifer, Q is soil particles, R is the permeable rocks, and the S is water table.
So that's it, students. We will continue our chapter in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Take care.